Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to make a Tarte Tatin, which is a classic caramelized apple with a puff pastry that's baked in the oven to complete perfection. So today we'll make a rough puff pastry. It's an easy take on the classic puff pastry, and then I'll show you how to do the rest. Yeah, let's go! So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the puff pastry, and this is just a rough puff pastry. It's not like a typical classic one where you have to do specific butter with all the folds. This one is a much easier one. It takes maybe about an hour and a half at most. Or you can just buy your own puff pastry. But if you want to make your own, I'll show you how to do that. So what you're going to need is just regular plain flour, about 150 grams. Use equal amount of butter. This is a puff pastry, so it needs a lot of butter. We're just using room temperature butter, so it incorporates better into the flour. And you want to use at least 82% fat content in your butter, so good European butter will work best. So I'm just going to squish the butter into the flour because you want to keep large chunks of butter. So now we're just going to add the water, which is about 40 grams, into the middle. I'm going to add just a little bit of white vinegar, which helps the dough stay fresher for longer and keeps it from decoloring, and it also helps to bake more flakier in the oven. So now we're just going to mix it all together. There's going to be a bit of some dry patches, but that's fine. You really don't want to overmix the dough. You just want to try to incorporate everything as evenly as possible. So now we're just going to take some cling wrap. We'll put it on the table. We'll put the dough. It doesn't come into a clump, but it'll come together when we start folding the dough. What you want to do now is just create a small square with the cling wrap. Here and here. So now we'll put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes. So I like to use green apples for my tart because it has more sourness. It kind of balances all the sweetness from the caramel. So we need about 6 green apples that we're going to peel, core, and cut only in half. So for the apples, you can definitely peel these the day before as well and put them in the fridge, because putting them in the fridge allows them to dry out the apples, because if you have too much moisture, it can kind of make your caramel a little bit too runny. So what I like to do is peel them and then put them in the fridge for about an hour or so. Put this in the fridge while I work on my dough, just so the apples dry out a little bit. And so now we'll go back to the dough and rolling it out. So we're just going to fold it like a letter. So you take the top down to the middle, and then you take the bottom over that, and then you're going to turn it, and we'll do the same thing. So we'll do this fold 3 times. It's called a single fold, and it just helps give the puff pastry its puff with all of those layers that you create. So now that we've done the 3 folds, I'm going to put it back in the fridge for about 30 minutes to an hour, just so the butter can reharden. And we'll roll it back out for the tart. So now we're going to roll out the dough, and we needed about 30 centimeter square circle because our skillet is about 25 centimeters, so you want just a little bit extra to be able to tuck under the apples. So you want to roll out the dough to about 3.5 to 4 millimeters thickness. So now that we've cut it, we'll put it back in the fridge while we work on the apples and the caramel. So for the caramel, which is the most important part, I'm going to be making in this dish because for the mold of the pan, which is 25 centimeters, it's a bit too big for my stovetop. But if your skillet and your stovetop are the same size, you can definitely just do it in one pan. But mine are too different, so I'm going to make it in a different pan and then transfer it to this later. So for my caramel, I'm going to be making what is called a wet caramel, which is where you add water to it, just because it helps the sugar not crystallize. Because when you have a lot of sugar in a smaller pan, it can crystallize, especially if the stove is not the same size as your pan. So a wet caramel will help make it easier. So it's about 250 grams of sugar, and then I'm going to add about 60 grams of water and a tiny little bit of lemon juice. So we're going to mix this till it looks like wet sand, and over medium-low heat. We're going to cook it till the sugar evaporates and it's like a clear syrup. Brush the edges to prevent crystallization on the sides. So while we're waiting for the caramel to cook, we're going to go ahead and preheat the oven to about 190 Celsius or about 375 Fahrenheit. So now that the caramel has turned like a light amber color, we're going to add our butter. Be careful, it's going to just swirl it around. And so now add that caramel to the skillet, which is what we're going to bake the tart in. Add that back. So I'm going to put this over medium heat, and then I'm going to add the apples right into the caramel, making sure that they're kind of tucked in very snugly. And if the apples have browned, it's completely fine. You won't notice once it's baked. So I'm just going to prick the dough all over the top with a fork just so it bakes evenly. And then we're just going to tuck the dough in all around. You want to be kind of fast since it'll start to melt your butter in the dough. Now we're going to put it in the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes, just until the crust is nice and golden brown. And then while it's baking, you can make your cream for the serving. So I never really measure when I make my whipped cream. I just pour a little bit of cream, a little bit of powdered sugar. Just a little bit, you don't want it too sweet. When it's nice and golden brown, that's when it's done. So we'll just leave it for about 5 or 10 minutes and we'll do the fun part. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and now you know how to make a tarte tatin. And again, you can buy your own puff pastry or you can make it yourself, because it really is quite a simple rough puff pastry to make. But yeah, let me know what else you would like to see me bake or cook. And until then, à bientôt. Say bye bye. Bye bye.